Now, let me give you an anecdote. This is why you take what modern scholars say with tons of salt. This is why you do not trust what modern scholars tell you, because the things they're telling you was already known by the fathers and commented on. Daniel Wallace is promoting the idea that the original number given by John in Revelation 13:18, and I played the clips, is 616. Why? Because they found two of the oldest copies of Revelation that has chapter 13, verse 18, and these two oldest copies read 616. So Daniel Wallace wants to influence future Bibles, especially the NET, which he worked on, to change 666 to 616. Are you with me there? This is why these scholars do not deserve your respect, and you need to study them critically and question everything they say, because I'm going to blow you away. Did you know that Irenaeus in the 2nd century already knew that there was a variant reading in the copies? He was aware there were copies that wrote 616, and he said those are defective copies, those are corrupt copies, because we have accurate copies from the originals passed on to us by the disciples of the apostles, and in these accurate copies it reads 666. And he warns people in following 616. Did you know that? It comes from Against Heresies, book 5, chapter 30, the first paragraph of Against Heresies. There it is right there. Let me read what he says about it. You ready? Why doesn't Daniel Wallace tell you that? Why did Daniel Wallace leave me in confusion, thinking that maybe it's 616, and not tell me the early church already knew about this? Here it is. Page 45. You see? Oops, sorry. Page 45. Right there. See the title? Okay. Irenaeus on the name of the Antichrist. I'm not going to read all of it. It's too long. I'm going to read the salient points. And the warning he gives. And the warning he gives. Look what it says. Now, here's what the editor says. The fascinating discussion of the Antichrist and a symbolic name 666 shows that the church leaders, guys, you got to listen to this. The church leaders who were still within living memory, they were still alive during the time of the disciples of the apostles, of the writing of the book of Revelation, because it had just been written recently, were no better position to interpret it than we are. Irenaeus says, be careful in venturing to know who the Antichrist is. He warns Christians. A lesson for you end-time prophecy experts. He warns Christians, stop speculating on the number of the name and who it is. He says, stop. He warns you in these sections. Read it. And yet we got end-time prophecy experts who think they know who the beast is. Henry Kissinger, right? Obama, Barack Obama. And he was warning people back then, we don't know, because if the apostle wanted us to know, the Lord would not put it in symbolism. He says that. If God wanted you to know the identity, he would have said it. The fact that it's symbolic in numbers means tread lightly, and he's going to give a warning. Let me read this part, and we go into just a moment, and I'm done. Okay, this fascinating discussion of the Antichrist and his symbolic name 666 shows that the church leaders who were still within living memory of the writing of the book of Revelation were in no better position. Now remember, this is a generation after John. Some were even eyewitnesses to John when he wrote this book in the 90s. And yet even that close on, they were in no better position to know who it was, because John didn't tell them. You understand what it's saying here? John didn't tell them. He goes, just know this is his number and this is what he's going to do. Leave it at that. Okay. Irenaeus makes some, watch here. Irenaeus makes some speculations about what 666 might mean, but he is careful to stress that nobody really knew. Now watch the number 666, 616, right? And textual variants. At a very early date, some manuscripts of the book of Revelation read 616 rather than 666. Now watch what Irenaeus says. Aren't you in love with your triune God? The God of the Bible, and the God of the church, the God of Irenaeus, who's our God? Why don't you tell your students that, Daniel Wallace, that long before you existed, Irenaeus already said the correct number, because we have accurate copies, 666. It's these corrupt copies that have 616. Now let's read his testimony. Against Heresies, Book 5, Chapter 30, first paragraph. I'm not going to read too much, but you're going to catch it. Let's read. Such then being the state of the case, and this number being found in all the most approved and ancient copies of the Apocalypse, and those men who saw John face to face, bearing their testimony to it. Did you catch it? Wait, Ernest, where are you getting this from? The top paragraph? The ancient approved copies, and those who knew John, telling us this is the actual number. Daniel Wallace. So now tell me he's lying. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Tell me, like James White, he doesn't know what he's talking about, and destroy our ancient heritage. You see it? So Irenaeus, where did you get that the right number is 666? From ancient approved copies, accurate copies, and the eyewitnesses to John that we heard directly from. While reason also leads us to conclude that the number of the name of the beast, if reckoned according to the Greek mode of calculation by the value of the letters contained in it, will be amount to 666. See? The correct reading and the accurate copies and those who knew John, who verified, that's what John told them, 666. That is the number of tens shall be equal to that of the hundreds, and the number of hundreds equal to that of the units. For that number which expresses the digit equal to that of the units, right? That number which expresses the digit 6 being adhered to throughout indicates the recapitulations of that apostasy taken in its full extent, which occurred at the beginning, during the intermediate periods, and which shall take place at the end. Now watch what he says. Watch here, guys. You ready now? What does he say about 616? Quote, I do not know how it is that some have erred following the ordinary mode of speech and have vitiated the middle number, meaning the 60, middle number, 666, right? The numbers would be 60. How some have vitiated the middle number in the name, deducting the number 50 from it, so that instead of 6 decades, they will have it there as but one. In other words, what he's saying, I don't know how someone made the mistake of changing the 60 to a 1, to a 10. I don't know how they did that. So they end up with 616. How do they do that? Now watch. I am inclined to think that this occurred through the fault of the copyist. Now he's trying to be gracious and saying, maybe a copyist made a mistake, but now watch the warning. As is wont to happen, since numbers also are expressed by letters, so that the Greek letter, which expresses the number 60, was easily expanded into the letter iota of the Greek. Instead of chi, expanded into epsilon and iota, they confused the letters because the letters represented numbers. Others then received this reading without examination. So like Daniel Wallace, look what he says. These people who took 616 did so without examining the evidence. Daniel Wallace, you're a moron for following 616, Daniel Wallace, according to Irenaeus, and yet you're considered one of the most knowledgeable scholars of the Greek New Testament text. And Irenaeus laughs at you. Some in their simplicity, not knowing any better. Now watch this, guys. Watch. It's going to get bad. Oof. These guys were not politically correct. Okay? And upon their own responsibility, making use of this number expressing 1 decade, while some in their inexperience have ventured to seek out a name which should contain their erroneous and spurious number. Did you catch it? They're trying to figure out, based on this erroneous, corrupt reading 616, who it is that's the Antichrist, and they assumed it's maybe an arrow. He doesn't mention that. What does he call that number, 616? He calls it erroneous and spurious, right? Which should contain the erroneous and spurious number. This is a mistake. It's not 616. Now, as regards those who have done this in simplicity, those who did it in ignorance because they were not smart, look what he says. Brethren, listen. And without evil intent, we are at liberty to assume that pardon will be granted them by God. God will have mercy because they didn't know any better. They didn't do it maliciously. But as for those who, for the sake of vainglory, pride, arrogance, lay it down for certain that names containing the Spirit's number are to be accepted, right here, and affirm that this name, hit upon by themselves, is that of him who's to come, such persons shall not come forth without loss. He's threatening judgment and wrath of God on them, because they have led into error both themselves and those who confided in them. Now, in the first place, it is lost to wander from the truth, and to imagine that as being the case, which is not, believing something to be true when it's not, and wandering from the truth, you're in danger, buddy. Look what he quotes. Then again, as there shall be no light punishment inflicted upon him, your punishment will be severe, ain't going to be light, right? Who either adds or subtracts anything from the scripture, Revelation 22:19. Now watch though. Under that, such a person must necessarily fall. Moreover, another danger, by no means trifling, it's not light that you're playing with danger, buddy, shall overtake those who falsely presume that they know the name of Antichrist. For if these men assume one number, when this Antichrist shall come having another number, they will be easily led away by him, as supposing him not to be the expected one who must be guarded against. You see the brilliance? You idiots, if you think it's 616, when it's 666, when the Antichrist comes and you calculate his name and it's 666, you won't think it's him, because you're going to think that the value of his name is 616, and you're going to fall for the Antichrist. You're playing with fire, idiots. That's what Irenaeus just said.